Alright, Daf Pei Tes. Tuesday's Daf, as we get to finish the Perek Kisei Adam and start Perek Gid Hanasheh. But first, we've got a little more than an Amud of Agadata to do. So let's pick it up from 5 lines from the bottom of Peiches Amud Beis. Omar Rava. B'schar she'omar Avram Avinu va'anoichi ofar va'efer. And the fact that Avram Avinu said, I'm nothing but dirt and ash. So zochu banav l'shtei mitzvahs. Efer para, v'ofar saita. Because of that anivus of Avram Avinu, we were zeicha to these two mitzvahs, Efer para, ofar saita. There's a beautiful Beis Halevi over there in Parshas Vayera that says the difference between ofar and Efer, dirt and ashes, is that dirt has no past, it only has a future, because the dirt was never anything, but it can be formed into something, can make kalim out of it, etc. And it's the exact opposite with ashes. It used to be something, but now it can never be anything anymore, now that it's been burned. So ofar and Efer represents having no past but a potential future, or having a past but having no potential future. And Avraham Avinu is saying, I'm neither. I'm ofar and I'm Efer. Because of that, we were zeicha to the Efer para, which gives us a future and allows us to become tahar, and v'ofar saita, which gets to clear up the past of the potential indiscretions of the wife. Why doesn't Rafa also count the mitzvah of Kisei Adam that we were zeicha? Teretz says, Hasam hechsher mitzvah ika hana leka. You don't get to eat the basar of the meat because of the Kisei Adam. So there's almost no olam hazeh dika hana from it. And Rava was listing mitzvahs that we get to have a hana. It's mater dish v'ishtai. It's matahir the person. V'yamar Rava b'schar she'omar Avram Avinu, moving over to Amud Aleph, im michut v'yad tzruchnal zochu banav l'shtei mitzvahs l'chut shel tchelis v'ritzua shel tefillin. Because Avram Avinu wouldn't take from the Melech's daim, not even the chut v'yad tzruchnal, he was zeicha to the mitzvahs of tzitzis and tefillin. And if you notice, Rabbi Kiveger's Mitzayin, Rashi, and Chumash, and what Rabbi Kiveger's Mistama referring to is the fact that Rashi and Chumash brings us a different reason, that we got the tzitzis because of shame, not because of Avram Avinu. And Rabbi Gross has a very nice little shtickle in his Parparayis Adaf, where he first brings from Rabbi David Luria that it might be a chilik between the tzitzis strings and the beged, and he ties that into Rashi being l'shitasei about hiddur mitzvah, that the beged itself becomes a chelik of the mitzvah of tzitzis. Just a very nice shtickle if you want to hear that. But Brakopan and Frektik Mar Bishlam Ritzua shel tefillin ksiv v'ra'u kol amei haaretz ki shem Hashem nikra alecha. And Vitanya Rabbi Eliezer Hagadol Omer elu tefillin shebaraish, that when the amei haaretz see it, they will see the glory of Hashem. But elachut shel tchelis mahi. What's the hana in this world that we're going to get from the chut shel tchelis? And just parenthetically, the ra'u kol amei haaretz, because there's a re'iyah by tefillin, that's why the Rabbeinu Yonah says the shear of wearing tefillin is going to be Misha Yakir, because it has to be able to be seen. But what is the hana ba'olam hazeh of the tchelis? Did Tanya, Rabbi Meir Omer, man nishtana tchelis mikol hatzavayin. What's so special about the color of tchelis, that we use that for the tzitzis? Mimnei tchelis daimel yam, v'yam daimel rakia. And when we look at the sea, we see the sky. And v'rakia daimel even sapir. The color of the sky looks like a sapphire stone. This nusach is not in all the different chazalim that quote this Gemara. Ve'even sapir daimel kisei hakavod dichsiv vayiru es elokei Yisrael v'tachas raglav v'gaimer. Dichsiv mar even sapir demus kisei. So lamaisa, when we look at the tchelis, we think of the yam, we think of the shamayim, we think of the kisei hakavod. So that is a hana that we receive with the mitzvah of tchelis, that we get this actionable benefit. This idea of when you look at the blue color, we all of a sudden, our brain thinks correctly to the kisei hakavod, and this is reminiscent of the Veltz Vart by Echad Miadeh at the end of the Seder, that if your brain is oriented correctly, when you look at something, it's supposed to trigger the right progression of thought. So by the time we reach the end of the Pesach Seder, Echad is Echad Elokeinu shebashamayim va'aretz, and Shnayim Miadeh, that's Luchei Sabris, that's the instinctive reaction when you hear these numbers. So too, maybe we're not holding by it, but that's what it should be. When you look at the color blue, you should think of the water, you should think of the Shemayim, you should think of the Kisei HaKavod. Amar Rabbi Abba, Kosher Gezel HaNe'echel, how terrible is Gezel that is consumed already, that you can't actually give back to the one it was stolen from. Shafilu tzadikim gemurim einan yechelon lachzirei, shene'amar beladai rak asher ochlu hana'arim. So this is what Avraham Avinu had said to the Melech Sadaim, even though of course he wasn't chayshit for Gezel, but it should even look like Gezel. But the point is how terrible it would be to have Gezel that is consumed because it cannot be returned. Amar Rabbi Yechanan mishum Rabbi Elazar b'Rabbi Shimon. Kol mokum shatam maitzi dvarav shel Rabbi Eliezer b'nai shel Rabbi Yosi Aglili b'Haggadah. Whenever you hear anything from Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Rabbi Yosi Aglili, l'gabe Haggadah, hasei aznecha kafar cheses, you should definitely make your ear like this funnel that you can hear, because it's great everything he says. Because Rabbi Eliezer was darshaning the pasuk, which I believe is in this week's parsha, le'merubchem mikol ho'amim chashak Hashem b'chem v'gaimer. That Hashem was saying it's not because you are all bigger nations, fakir, you're smaller, which he darshans to understand because of the anivus of Klal Yisrael. That Omer lahem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael, cheshkani b'chem, Hashem has a cheshek for us, shafil b'shah, sha'ani mashpia lachem gedula, atem mamatim atzmachem lefanai. You make yourself small. Nasati gedula la'Avram, I gave greatness to Avram Avinu. Omer lefanai v'anechi offer vefer. L'maishav Aaron Omru v'nachnu ma. What are we? LeDavid Omer v'anechi teilas v'leish. Avol evdik echavamenan kain. It ain't that way by the Goyim. Nasati kedula l'Nimrod. And what did Nimrod say? Omar hava nivne lanu ir. L'pare Omer mi Hashem. L'sancheirav Omer mi b'chel elakei aratzes v'goymer. L'Nebuchadnezzar Omer ela al b'masei ov. I'm going to go up to the top of the clouds. L'chira melech tzur Omer Moshe v'elekim yoshavti b'leiv yamim. So you see the Yidden, when they get godless, they make themselves small, and it's the opposite by the Goyim. Omer Rava v'Tamer Rav Yechanan, Gadol shene'amar b'Moshe v'Aaron, Yosef b'ma shene'amar b'Avram. It's even greater what Moshe Rabbeinu said more than Avram Avinu. Ilu b'Avram ksiv v'anechi ofer v'efer. He's nothing but dirt and ashes, or l'maisa it's something. But v'ilu Moshe v'Aaron ksiv v'nachnu ma, what are we? We're nothing at all. Not even the dirt and ashes. Yomer Rava v'Tamer Rav Yechanan, ein ha'olam miskayim el b'shvil Moshe v'Aaron. Because ksiv hacha v'nachnu ma. U'ksiv hasem toila eretz al b'lima. So it's because of that nachnu ma that we have a kiyum. Omer Rabbi La, ein ha'olam miskayim el b'shvil misha boilem es atzmei b'shas mariva. The world can only be sustained because of people who are able to keep quiet and not react when someone ba'avels them. Shenamar toila eretz al b'lim ma, which is a play on the word that he keeps his mouth closed. Rabbi Avo Omar, misha mesim atzmei kemish einoi. It's as if he's not even here. Shenamar mitachas zrois oilam. Omar Rabbi Yitzchak, my dechsev ha'umnam elem tzedek tidaberun meisharim tishbetu bonai adam. What do we mean when it says in the pasuk, is there taka quiet? Is there taka silence? That the tzedek should speak and the judgment should be fair? What did David HaMelech mean in this pasuk? So the first part of the pasuk of ha'umnam elem, that the work should be quiet, ma umnase shel adam ba'elam hazeh yasim atzmai ki elem, he should make himself like a mute. And yachal aflo divrei Torah, and you might think even legabe halacha and divrei Torah you should be quiet. Talmud Leimer, no. Tzedek tidaberun, you should speak up when it comes to dvarim shel Torah. Yachal yagis daitai, maybe you think someone who speaks words of Torah should become a shtickle bal gaiva. Talmud Leimer meisharim tishbetu b'nei adam, and that should be the even anivus, which Rashi says like a smooth piece of land that people can walk on. Amar Rabbi Zeira v'Itamer Rabba bar Yirmiyah mechasin ba'ofar ir nidachas. Zok Rabbi Zeira halacha that you're allowed to do kisei adam with the ofar of an ir nidachas, even though everything in an ir nidachas is asur b'hana. Frak the Gemara, how can that be? V'yamai isurei hanahu. The afar ir nidachas is taka going to be asur b'hana, so why is it mutter to do this? Amar Zeira le'nitzrucha el afar ofra. Rabbi Zeira's heter is to use that earth from the ground of the ir nidachas, meaning the dirt, and that doesn't mean the loose topsoil, but it means the actual hard earth beneath it, because that's mutter b'hana. Dechsiv ve'eskol shalala tikbaitz el teich rachayva v'sorafta. That misha ena mechusar ela kvitza usreifa. Only those things that require gathering and burning, meaning those dvarim hamataltalim, yatzezeh mechusar tlisha kvitza usreifa, that those will not become asur b'hana, part of the ir nidachas. For Rava Amar, there's no problem with using the actual ashes of the burned ir nidachas, because mitzvahs lav lehenes nitnu. Because as Rashi says, mitzvahs are only the gzeres hamelech aleim, and therefore they're not asur because of regular isurei hana to do mitzvahs with them. Yosef Ravina v'karmel lo hashmaitza, Esvei Rav Ruchumi lo Ravina. The Brisa says shayfer shal avodas kechavim lo yitakabay. So my lav him taka lo yotze. Doesn't it sound like you're not yaitze if you use a shayfer that was used for avodah zara? L'chayr, it's because it's asur b'hana. So it seems like you can't use a davar shel isur hana for a mitzvah. To which Ravina says back, Loi, im taka yotze, you are yaitze because mitzvahs lav lehenes netnu. It just means you shouldn't use it because it's disgusting to use a shayfer shel avodah zara for the mitzvah of tekiyah shayfer. Well, lulav shel avodas kechavim lo yitel. The Brisa says you can't use a lulav of avodah zara. My lav him not lo yotza, to which Ravina says the same thing. Lo him not lo yotza, you are yaitze if you use a lulav of avodah zara. Because again, mitzvahs lav lehenes netnu. Vatanya taka lo yotza, not lo yotza. So it's just not true what you're saying. You're taka not yaitze. You're chiyav tekiyah shayfer. You're not yaitze. You're chiyav lulav. So Ravashi hachi ashta hasam by shayfer and lulav turning over Tamid Bey's shiura bein, and you need to have a shear. V'avodas kechavim ketusi mechta shiura. Since these things were used for avodah zara, you don't have the shear, because since kol ha'omed lisarif kasarif dami, it's as if it's already broken up. It's not a big enough of a shayfer or a lulav. Aber by kisui adam, what do you worry about that? It's kituse and it's broken up. Kol ma de michtas male lekisui. The more ground up it is, the better it is. You don't want it to be one whole object, but it's as if it's already destroyed, and therefore it's taka better for kisui adam. And with that we end the parak. Hadra alach kisui adam, and now we get to start the 7th parak. Baruch Hashem. Gid hanosha neig ba'aretz u'v'chutz la'aretz. There's always going to be the issur of gid hanosha b'fnei habayis v'shalei b'fnei habayis b'chulin uve mukudoshin. It's across the board all the time. V'neig b'behema u'b'chaya, all different kinds of animals. V'yarech shel yamin, v'yarech shel shmal, and according to the Tanakama, it's going to be both the right and left sciatic nerve. Both of them is going to be usher. Al tzgid hanosha. Ve'ein neig b'if, but it's not negated birds. Mipnei she'ein like kaf. They don't have that kaf, that spoon-shaped basar on their thigh, the noyeg b'shalil, and it is negea to a fully grown uber, like this ben pakua, that if you shecht an animal, you take out this full term ben pakua, since according to Shitas Rav Meir, that the Gemara is going to say is the Tana over here in this Mishnah, that it needs its own shechita, so it's a regular animal. So of course it's going to be usher, al t'gid anoshe. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, ain't a noyeg b'shalil. It's not true, because the mother of the shechita was mater, the actual animal in ganzen. The chelbei mutter, and the chelev of that shalil is also going to be mutter. Next halacha, ve'ena tabachin ne'emanin al gid anoshe. Gid anoshe is very hard to take out, so we don't trust the sheikhtim to say they took out the gid anoshe. Diver Rabbi Meir, v'chachamim meimrim ne'emanin Allah ve'ala chelev. They are trusted to remove both the gid anoshe and the chelev. Zok the Gemara mukudashim pshita. Why would I think that a gid anoshe would not be usher just because it's hegdish? Mishum da'akdisha pakale iser gid minei. Just because it's hegdish, I would have a havamina that there wouldn't be an iser gid anoshe. I think it's the tzlach that asks, why don't we say asay daichel lois asay for the kachim? Upon him, you want to tell me yesh begidin b'nai sein tam. Maybe you're going to tell me the gid anoshe actually is not like a piece of wood, like the other sheet is going to hold, but rather it actually gives flavor. So therefore, you're getting hana, and therefore v'asi iser mukudashim v'chayal iser gid. And the Tana is telling us that the iser of kachim is even chal on that gid hanashe, and there's no problem of ein iser chal al iser. But that can't be because hay mukudashin noig begid mi boile. The Tana should have said that kachim is even neged to the gid hanashe rather than saying that the gid hanashe is on kachim. So it doesn't sound like the chiddush of the Tana is that you're chayiv for the hana, because it was already there, that iser. So Ela Kasavar ein begidin b'naisim tam. The Tana of our Mishnah must hold that the gidin don't give off any tam. They're like Eitzim Bialma. Uve Mukdashim, Lagabe the Mukdashim, what's the chiddush of the Tana? That Isser Gid Ika, Isser Mukdashim Leka. There's only the Isser Gid Anasha, and there taka is no Isser for the Kachim, because there's no Hana, but you still are going to be Isser for the Isser Gid Anasha. Frektig Amar V'Savar Tana Didan, Ein Begidin B'nai Sein Tam. But now the mission is going to be saying, Yarech Shnis Bashal Ba Gid Anasha. Let's say you cook the whole ganze thigh of an animal. Zim Yesh Ba B'nai Sein Tam, Hareza Asura. So clearly the Tana holds that Gid Anasha is going to give off a tam. It seems clear from the Mishnah that way. Elohacha B'Vladais Kachim Askinan. Let's say another pshat. Our Mishnah is talking about not the kachim themselves, but the vladais kachim, which means we're talking about a female animal that can have a baby, and therefore, Zok Rashi, we're talking about a carbon shlomim. For whatever reason, Rashi doesn't want to give us the example of achatas. V'kasavar noyeg b'shalil, and our Tana holds that the Gid Anasha is going to apply to this unborn child. V'kasavar vladais kachim b'mei hein kedoshim. From the time they are formed inside the mother animal, they are hegdish, as opposed to saying it only happens at the time of their birth, which is the sugi and tamura. Because it happens in their formation and not in their birth, the iser gid, the iser mukdoshim b'hadei adadi ka'asi, and therefore there won't be a problem with ein iser chal iser because it happens at the same time. Frekti Gemara, umi motis mukmas la b'shlil. Can you use that in our Mishnah talking about the shlil? I have a homedik tani seifa noig b'shlil, from the fact that the Mishnah introduces the shlil later in the Mishnah. Mechlal dereisha la b'shlil askinan. To which the Gemara answers, hachi hashda davar zem machlekes derbi Yehuda v'Rabbanan. This iser gid anasha lagabe a shlil is a machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanan. So the first part of the Mishnah is telling us that the gid anasha is going to be by a shlil in the first place, and the Mishnah now is repeating this point just to tell us that it's not so pashut because it's telling a machlekes tanaim. All right, we're going to stop here and I'll pick it up with the Mimotzis for tomorrow's daf.